Okay, so this is our middle school area. Now we're in the 88 edition. Kids use this area for, of course, accessing the collection, hanging out, using the computers. Hi, Rachel.
Oh, hi, Jan.
This chair over here is super popular, not because it's a great chair, but because it's a quiet reading nook. So, even though we want to have as much sight or as good of sight lines as we can have, I didn't say that very eloquently, but sight lines are important, but it's also important to kids to have spaces that feel private, even if they're not necessarily. And so that chair is almost always taken, and I wish we had more spaces that felt like a little cozy nook for kids to sit and read, because that's one of the best things about a library when you're little, is being able to kind of curl up and feel like you're disappearing. This space is also used for our story times now, because our community meeting room is almost always booked. It's just easier to do the story times in here, which is not ideal because then it fills up the whole space. Another challenge with this area, or just the whole basement area really, is that each of these groups we're talking about, birth to kindergarten, elementary and middle school, those are all really developmentally distinct age groups, and they want to feel like they're not on top of each other. A lot of the things that middle schoolers are interested in talking about or accessing on the internet are not appropriate for elementary school students. And so the lack of no sound barrier can be a challenge. Conversely, like we said, there's not a lot of space in the elementary school area, so elementary school kids will come in here because there's great seating and there's computers. And then the middle schoolers feel like, oh, I don't want to be with the babies, like, I don't want to be here. So our ideal situation would be, they don't have to be separate rooms, there don't have to be walls between them, but if they just felt more distinct and everyone had more breathing room and we had better sound management, everyone would be much more comfortable and happy and safe. Any questions? So that bag right back there is, it holds snowshoes. We have a growing library of things. We check out all sorts of things like ukuleles and telescopes and ski passes and non-traditional lending items, and we don't have good storage for that. It's like we have all these game night kits right behind Royce. No good storage place for that. So that kind of gets back to the shelving question. We don't need a ton more space for shelving, but we need better shelving that can accommodate our changing collections. Okay, I'm gonna check and see if the community meeting room is open, and if it is, we'll go in there, and if it's not, I'll come back and we'll talk. So this is our children's room, and it's nice. When I did the morning tour, it can be really busy in here in the morning. It was very loud, so it's kind of nice that it's quiet. This is definitely an area that fills up and empties out at different points during the day, so after school gets out, there'll be another rush, probably. But okay, so this is the basement of the 24 building, and then down there, the 88 building. This rectangle right here is our elementary school area. And then this area down here is our birth to kindergarten area. So we do have a ton of people come in and bring their babies, 6 weeks and on. Kids start coming in when they're really little. And so there's a space down at the end of this room, which we call like the wiggle area, which is where the youngest library users get their wiggles out. And we have sensory exploration tool stuff down there, and they just kind of play with each other. It's nowhere near big enough. It's so cramped and tiny. We have a lot of local daycares that will come by in the morning, and they'll just bring the whole daycare class. So that's like right away 10 or 12 little kids bombing around back there. And then you add in 2 or 3 families with 2 kids each, and this area is like completely overwhelmed. There's no sight line from the youth service desk, so that's a problem for the children's safety. We always want to be able to see kids, especially kids at an age that are learning how to climb and stuff like that. Down to the left is our boiler room. So we wish that our youngest patrons were not right next to that. And then to the right is our custodial mop closet. And we have had some, I guess our plumbing isn't perfect. And so there have been problems with flooding through the mop basin. I guess basically raw sewage has leaked into this children's area on multiple occasions. And so that's obviously a concern. And I want to assure everyone that it was dealt with appropriately and safely, and this is a safe area for children. But the fact that that could happen again, like, it is upsetting. So a lot of things could be fixed, including our cubby situation. There's nowhere to park strollers in this building, and people come in with a lot of strollers. We could have a better storage situation for kids' boots and coats and backpacks and mittens, especially in the winter when kids come in, the stuff just comes off. And so we really need more space down here for families to be comfortable. The elementary school area, there's only one, so this table is always used for programming. So kids are usually doing crafts right here. There's one other round table down there, and that's the only table in the children's room for kids to do homework. It's also the only table in the children's room for grown-ups to do work. And we do have a lot of adults that come here and try and work while their kids play. We also have supervised visits that take place here where a table would be nice to have if parents are like having a meal or something with children or meeting with a social worker. So there's a whole bunch of different uses going on down here, and it's just way too cramped to accommodate all of them. We also have all these charming columns, which, you know, the librarians here are so amazing. They've done a great job making this place feel really appealing and fun for kids. And I don't think most of the children, or even some of the parents that come in, see these problems or feel them. It's like, it's bright, my kids love it, I'm just so happy to be out of the house. But it's so cramped, the sight lines are so bad, it's a basement, there's not a lot of great natural light, there's no fresh air, we've had problems with mold in the past. Like, kids love it, but you know, we could do a lot better, I think. Oh, and then collection space. So the youth collections are the only part of the collection that we really would like to grow. Every book you see has circulated in the last year. So that's really tight. I mentioned upstairs, most of the adult collection, if it doesn't circulate in 3 years, we get rid of it. That feels comfortable and appropriate to me. Getting rid of books that are 2 years old just because we don't have room for them because we're at a one in, one out. It's not the best use of taxpayer money. I'd love to be able to hold on to, you know, the community could accommodate and use a larger collection for children.
Do you know the approximate size of what you want it to be in an ideal?
Yes, but not off the top of my head. On the RFQ resource website, there's a, like, I think we called it a preliminary program. And that has information on how much shelving space we would need for the youth collection and its anticipated growth.
The quirkiness of the geometry of the space seems to be related to the 88 edition. It's like this boiler room has been a boiler room since the beginning of time here in the building. And so when the 88 edition was put on, they left it there and built around behind it. Now, some thoughts that were floated around, and actually Chris was involved with the town office building, was the idea of a centralized vault space that could go outside and then free up that secondary space, if you will, critical secondary space away from the footprint of the occupiable space, if you will. So it was a solution, but you know, in time has not proved that to be the better one.
Yeah. This is our youth desk. When we walk through this space, I encourage everyone to just look through this door right here. This used to be a stairwell, which actually went all the way up to the 3rd floor. So there used to be a staircase up to MCTV that I think when the 88 edition came in got filled in or taken away. I don't know what the proper term would be. So this former stairwell is now the office space for 3 library staff members, as well as the only storage that we have for the youth department, including like all of their crafts for all of their programming, so you can look in and just kind of see what a crunched situation it is. And it just looks, I mean, people don't even notice it anymore, but I hate that people walk through and see that. It just makes us look, I don't know, unprofessional, I think. Oh, and our bathtub is famous. So any plan for a renovation and expansion has to include a designated space for the bathtub. It's been here forever. It's been through many iterations of paint and use. It used to be filled with stuffed animals. We don't do that anymore post-COVID because of the germ factor, but kids still crawl in there and read or play games. And John, if you grew up in Middlebury, you probably remember it from your childhood.
I mentioned it to you right
Yes,
all
yes.
the way down.
Yeah, everyone loves the bathtub.
I have been in it.
This is the space that's used by Middlebury Community Television. They're a non-paying tenant. We have a great partnership with them. Their staff support library programs and run things like female filmmaker camps in the summer. They help record library programs for us. And then of course they record things for the select board and the school board and other community events. So it works out really great that we get to share a space with them. The community really values the partnership and them being here. They've made it really clear that they want to see that continue in the new building. This space, which I assume used to just be an attic until we needed to move up here. After I finish talking, I'll let you can all just poke around, but there's these really low knee walls back in the office and in the storage spaces, so there's just not enough space or not enough usable space. A big problem is that there's no secondary egress, which we know we really need to address. I think we're allowed to have like 5 or 6 people up here right now.
Josh Maxim was actually pretty generous.
Yeah.
We used to continue. It took some really good talking, but he's pretty well there. I think it's fine.
Yeah, so that's something we definitely need to address. The Friends of the Library also use this space. They're a separate 501c3 that takes care of our fundraising, and their primary mechanism for funding is through book sales. So every single day people bring books to the library. You guys would be amazed at how many books are donated every day. And so every day the Friends get the books, they bring them up here, they sort them, they store them, and then once a month they bring them all down to the community meeting room, or if it's nice outside, they'll use the plaza outside the town offices. Their storage is just woefully inadequate. They do not have enough space up here, and the space is super cramped with like low ceilings and stuff like that. A lot of the people that volunteer for the Friends are older, and at the age where working like this is just not good for them. And this is like the farthest point from the community meeting room and where the books are donated. So it really it's frustrating for them to get the books downstairs, bring them up here, bring them back down. I mean, it just makes their job a lot harder than it has to be. And since they're volunteers working for free to support the library, we want to make their job as easy as possible. So we'd like for them to have a space that better fits their needs. I think that's all I had to say about MCTV. We have 2 storage closets up here. Storage is just like a problem throughout the building. There's just nowhere near enough storage. I'll talk more about that downstairs. Yeah, feel free to check out MCTV's offices back there. And if you go through that door and take a left, that's the Friends' main storage space.
Cool.
This is the Vermont room because this is where we have historically stored our Vermont collection, which is historic materials and Vermont authors. This is a collection that we do expect to shrink because a lot of this has been digitized or is maintained by other local organizations and is duplicate. So what this space gets used for mostly now is quiet study, remote work, distance learning. We got these fun tables with the embedded power with some ARPA funding we got, and they've been really popular. There are 3 small meeting rooms, 1, 2, 3. They can seat up to 4 people, but it's tight. They're really popular. This one is available to book ahead of time for up to 3 hours. These 2 are available on a first come, first served basis. The challenges, I mean, I know you're noticing this recurring theme. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but we don't have good sight lines into these spaces. And it's easy for people to come up here, turn off the lights and camp out. You know, teenagers meet up in these spaces, stuff like that. Ideally, a library meeting room really can be glass on all 4 sides. You shouldn't be doing anything in there that can't be seen by everyone. The sole exception is accessing telemedicine, and we do have one space in the library that is private for patrons, and it's right back here. There's a doorway right through there that goes to our digital media lab, which has equipment for things like podcasting and recording and transferring analog data to digital. So like people that have old home videos and stuff will use it to make digital records. But that space can be completely private. There's a curtain, it locks, and people will use that sometimes for meetings with therapists or other telemedicine, which is appropriate because we always know who's in there because you have to sign up ahead of time and we give you a key to get in. We never used to have people requesting the space for those purposes, but after the pandemic, it's become really essential to some people. So that's something that we want to definitely support going forward.
Is more space required, or is there?
It'd be better. We'd like a little more space.
A little more space.
But not a lot.
Yeah.
And that's the one space that we really don't need sight lines to. That
Yeah.
could go anywhere.
Yeah.
We're about to go down, or in a little bit we'll go downstairs and you'll hear me complain a lot about the basement, but that's a space that could be in a basement. You know, you want as little light as possible for some of the recording that they do in there, and you want to be able to make it totally dark, so that would be fine. Is there anything else I wanted to say about this space? I don't, oh yeah, just the sound management again. People like to work quietly up here and we're right next to the lobby. So depending on the time of day and how many people are in the lobby, it can be very frustrating for the people up here who are trying to do quiet work. And this was never designed to be a reading room, which is kind of how it's being used right now. So and there's only 2 floor outlets, so we would love to get 2 more of these tables. So we've seen 3 areas for quiet reading now, down in the reference room, down in the stacks, and over here. It'd be great if they could be brought together and be better laid out, because this is kind of it feels like we could fit another table in here, maybe, but we don't have the power to support it, and it'd be tight, so. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go up to MCTV. So here we are upstairs, still in the 88 edition. This is our fiction stacks, and then we also have space over here that is used for more quiet study. The big challenge up here is that this is the area that's the furthest away from any library staff members. We have no sight lines, we can't really hear what goes on up here, and so consequently this is the part of the library where we tend to find, you know, the most beer cans, stuff like that. And library shelving should really, ideally, be arranged so the rows run perpendicular to the sight lines, so that someone walking down this hallway would theoretically be able to see all the way to the back of the room and have a good sense of who's in here. Right now, we have no idea who's in here or what they're doing, and that can be really unsettling for patrons. And it can be unsettling for staff too, especially at the end of the day when we come up here to do our sweep. It's dark, we have to check down every single row. You just don't know. It's also a safety issue because we do not allow sleeping in the library because we can't tell if someone's having a medical event or an overdose or asleep. It all looks the same. So we don't allow sleeping, but again, if someone wants to come up here and lie down, they can and they do. So ideally we would have better sight lines, more oversight, and just shelving that doesn't obscure the view. This shelving is really intense. It's bracketed to itself and also the ceiling, which is really not necessary. This is like the really intense earthquake-proof library shelving. Maybe there was like a deal on it at the time. I don't know.
We're in a seismic zone.
Yeah, I don't know. But now you can have shelves that are very stable and even on wheels and much more flexible. We don't use the top shelves or the bottom shelves for accessibility purposes, and also because we know in libraries, as in retail, the books from the top and bottom shelf don't circulate as much as the middle ones. So our collection is the right size right now. Overall, it's a little bit, the children's room is a little different, but our adult collections are the right size. We don't need to grow the collections, and I don't think they'll shrink for the next 10 years or so. Beyond that, it's kind of hard to say. But we have about 55,000 volumes, and everything you see has circulated in the last 3 years. So we don't carry a lot of excess, you know, there's not a lot of books here that haven't been checked out and aren't actively used, which is fine. That's appropriate for a public library. We're not trying to hold things forever. And what else was I gonna say? So we don't need to add more books to the collection, but it would be nice to have more space for the collection because we would like to have more display shelving. As you can see, everything is spine out, and it's nice to be able to have some shelves so that books, you can see the covers. People do, contrary to the popular saying, pick out books by their covers, especially younger kids, so it's even more important in the children's room. But yeah. We do need a little bit more space for the collection, but not a lot. We don't need more shelving, we just need better shelving. Any questions about up here? Okay. Ilsley 88 edition. This is our computer lab and our adult nonfiction stacks. So we will always have to have some number of desktop computers because not everyone has their own individual laptop or device, but we don't need as many as we used to have. So we could have a slightly smaller computer lab. What we would like though is for the computers to be more private. People use these computers for all sorts of things that require you know, your social security card or medical information or something if you're applying for a job or accessing telehealth. So it's really uncomfortable to have someone just looking over your shoulder, even though probably no one is. It feels uncomfortable. Yeah. So that's one kind of challenge with this space. Sight lines again, and then this would be a really nice big open space that we could theoretically do something else with. You know, we could maybe put the stacks on wheels and then we could push them out of the way and do programs in here. But we've got these big metal steel trusses all the way down, which my understanding is that they hold up both the floor and the ceiling, and we just can't get rid of them. So it makes it really hard to imagine using this space for anything other than stacks ever. So that's a big challenge with this part of the building. During the morning tour, someone asked a question about our cooling system while we were here, so I'm just remembering that, and I'll share that information with you guys now. We have, like, I think 11 or 12 AC units spread throughout the building, and they don't bring in fresh air from the outside, and they're about 20 years old. So at any given time in the summer, we have 7 or 8 that are working and 2 or 3 that are out of commission. And in our heating system, we have the 1924 building and the 77 edition are steam heat. 1988 is hot water, and our boiler is approaching 30 years old and is really on its last legs. So we would love to replace all of that with a functioning, you know, HVAC system, maybe like cold climate heat pumps or something like that that's electric and more efficient. And like I said, it's a good day when the heat turns on and everything's working, but you know, we dare to dream that someday we might have more control over like multiple heating and cooling zones. And just some level of comfort and control, because right now it's really hard to ensure that the whole building is the same temperature. Any questions before we head upstairs? Great. Okay, we're just gonna go right up. Okay, so now we're in the 1988 building. This used to be the exterior wall right here. So this is the 88 edition, and we used to call this the reference room. Our entire reference or physical reference collection is now on those 3 shelves. So in public libraries, at least, reference collections have really shrunk. Most reference resources are online, again, for public libraries. So we use this now mostly as a quiet study area. People work remotely or do distance learning in here. They'll sit and read and just kind of spend time in here, charge their devices. This is where we keep our periodicals, and we just recently started displaying puzzles up here. We really don't like to use these shelves for books because they're not very accessible. You've got to lean way over. The top ones are pretty high up, and we really don't want people to use this ladder ever. I think it's from the Lazarus department store, which used to be down at the end of Main Street. So it's like a historical relic. I'm not sure why we have it, but our loss control agent has advised us that if anyone ever climbs that, it's really, you have a lot of liability. So anyways, we don't want to encourage people to climb up. These books up here are actually just for show. They're not even part of our collection. So some challenges with this area, the acoustics, a lot of noise bleeds through from the lobby. We don't have good sight lines into here, so sometimes we'll have people fall asleep in these chairs or something like that. The columns make it a little difficult to really use the space to the full extent, I think. We hold concerts in here on Saturday afternoons, so we push the furniture out and set up chairs. It'd be, the columns get in the way a little bit. And then lighting. Right now it's fine because it's bright outside, but when it's dark outside, it's really dark in here. These lighting fixtures this thing doesn't do a very good job. And I won't point it out as we go through the library, but I'll just say now, we have like a million different kinds of lighting fixtures in this building, and a million different kinds of light bulbs that we have to stock or try and find when lights go out, and it would just be so nice to have like 3 different kinds of lights and light bulbs throughout the building. I think that's all I wanted to say about this space. Any questions about the reference room, which is no longer used for reference? Great. We're not going to come to meet us is the lobby. All of Middlebury converges here. Okay, so this is our teen room, which is it's essentially a closet for books. It's not even big enough for the teen collection that we have, and what we really wish we had was a big enough space so that teens had, and we're mostly talking about high school students here, a place to do homework, a place to hang out and socialize, a place to just come and be safe and comfortable after school that feels like their own. I think one of the most challenging things in any library design is probably figuring out where to put the teen room, because their collections are also used by adults, so you want it to be kind of close to the adults, but teens and adults both want their hangout places to be separate. Teens it doesn't make sense to put them with the kids either, so it's always kind of difficult to think about where location-wise they should be. This is working out pretty well for us, but again, it's just nowhere near big enough. Nowhere near big enough. Answer on the website, but the most recent drawings we have are from the 1988 edition.
Okay.
So we have those. I don't think we were planning on making those available during the RFQ process, but I think we would during the design, during the subsequent phases. And then we have more updated. What would you call what Judith did? I mean, they're plans. Things have changed a lot since 1988, so we don't have architectural plans from recently, but we have more updated drawings that show where things are now.
Jason, yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of a base, you know, for these concept development.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you know, there's you can't take all the measurements as absolute, but at least it's a good starting point. And probably from the perspective of what you're doing now, when you start to think about how you approach it, they would certainly be adequate.
Okay.
Yeah, right. But we don't have original drawings from the 77 edition.
Okay. Or for the 24.
No.
Yeah. They'd be kind of cool. Huh?
Yeah, it'd be-
I would
Yeah.
think.
I bet they're somewhere,
Yeah.
not in our records and
Right.
archives, but maybe in the towns. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
They're spread out throughout the building, but this is kind of the primary administrative area. So we have 3 full-time staff members that work in here. Myself, this is my office. Royce is right here. I'm sorry that I did not introduce Royce
Oh,
McGrath.
I'm Royce.
Our
Nice to meet
operations
everybody.
manager.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Running the filming. This is also where we store all of our records. It's where we store all of our office supplies. It's where we have our super secure safe. And then we have 2 shared work areas. One is right through here. We call this our discharge room, and that is the space where we store book trucks, and it's where we process books that have been returned. They get returned, we sort them onto the trucks, and then the trucks gets sent out throughout the library. So that's a busy area in the morning. And then down this hallway, and once I finish, everyone can go down and take a look if you like. This is our book processing room. So that's where new books arrive and are unpacked and cataloged and barcoded and covered and all that good stuff. So we have thousands and thousands of books going through there each year. We spend about $100,000 on books each year, so it's a really busy, active workspace. It's nowhere near big enough. And the other big challenge is that it's only accessible via stairs in both doors. You need stairs to get in or out. And as you can imagine, books travel on trucks, and so that's a huge challenge for us every single day. If you think about like a truck like this loaded up with books, that's really hard to lift up over 2 or 3 stairs, and that's what we do. So that space was always going to be a book processing room. I don't know how in the planning process no one realized that stairs were going to be a problem. Maybe there was just no way to get the levels to line up with the grade, and that's why it's the way it is. But ideally we would have like each of these spaces, the staff desks, the storage, and the 2 workrooms could just be one big open space, all one level, so that we can roll books around as needed and just have more flexibility and be able to reconfigure things as needed. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about this space. Like our network server and all that stuff is in a little closet right over here. Any questions?
There's a full sprinkler system
Yes.
throughout.
Yes, there is. And it passed the recent inspection. So that's good. Okay, if anyone wants to, you're welcome to go poke your head in down there or check out the discharge room.
Danny, quick question.
Okay, so luckily it's nice and warm in here today. Our heat turned on, which is always a good day for us. So we entered through the 77 edition. Now we're in the original 1924 building. We call this the library lobby, but really it's really kind of the heart of the library in some ways. This is where we keep our adult new materials. So new fiction is over there, new nonfiction is over there. It's where we have our central circulation and reference desk. So people check in and out materials, get help finding things, ask any variety of reference questions. It's also a community space. This is where we have the most spontaneous or unplanned meetings between community members. People stop in and see their neighbor or a friend or whatever, and they sit down and chat. People come in and work on a puzzle. We always have a puzzle or a craft out, so people will spend some time doing that. People rest and read quietly. We have newspapers, so in the morning, a lot of the times, people are in here reading the newspaper. Trying to think. So the 1924 building ends at that wall with the painting of the newsboy. So originally, I believe this was the public space. the staff were right there, and then back behind that mirrored wall was where the stacks were. And then there was a second floor of stacks up here. And this was all kind of like a reading room. It was a great design for a library back in the day, because the central desk had sight lines to all the public spaces. The problem for us now, of course, is that the way we've added on to the building, we have sight lines to no other part of the building other than this space right here, until we get down to the children's room. So that's a big challenge for us. Another challenge is that throughout the building, we just don't have enough space for our staff. So we have 2 staff members. You can go right through if you need to. We're just doing a quick tour. We have 2 full-time staff members that sit behind the reference desk. That's where their desk is. And that's confusing to patrons because they don't, why would they know the difference between the reference desk and the staff desk? So it can be really distracting for the staff that work out here full-time because people are going up to them, or this is the loudest part of the library, so that's another challenge. And then this is the loudest part of it. Well, depending on the time of day, the children's room is often the loudest part, but this is a loud part of the library, and as you'll notice as we go through other spaces, that acoustic containment or lack thereof is a challenge for us. Any questions about the lobby? Okay, we're gonna go back and look at some of this. We used to have a 24-hour book drop right around this corner, and people loved it. And it deposited books into the a closet where we keep our, what do you call it, like all the breaker switches.
Yep.
And through that closet, you access the elevator room. And so the fire marshal told us no more book drop because it was impeding access to the elevator room. And in an emergency, that would be bad. So we can no longer have that as our 24-hour book drop.
Gotcha.
So the reason why I'm going to talk out here before we go in is because once we go in, there's just no room on the landing for us to stand and talk. This is our side entrance. So this is the 1977 edition right here. And this is where about 75% of our traffic comes through. Even during the summer when the front doors open, people tend to prefer this door either because it's accessible or because they're coming from the back parking lot. Even though this is our ADA compliant entrance, I still feel like it's not terribly welcoming. It's really narrow.
Yep.
So if you're in a motorized wheelchair, or if you have a stroller, or God forbid you have twins and it's a double stroller, this is really tough to get through. And it's heavy, you've got to pull it open. Once you get inside, and you'll all see this once we go in, there's just a little landing and then like a split level staircase. So you don't see anyone, you don't see a friendly librarian, you don't even know you're in a library, there's no books, there's nothing to give you a sense of place. You either have to go up or downstairs, or you have to get immediately into the elevator. The elevator itself is, I think, kind of small by modern standards, and it has two different doors, so you come in this way, and then at the higher levels you have to turn yourself to exit this way. So again, if you're in a wheelchair, we've been told that it's difficult to maneuver for some people, and it's just old and not doing so well. Another big problem with this entrance is that because there's no staff member there to greet you, there's no sight lines, so we don't know who's coming in and out of the building. And someone can come in and go up to the 3rd floor. We have no idea they're here or how long. Someone can go right downstairs to the restrooms and lock themselves in our single-use, single occupancy. Go right ahead. Our single-use restrooms, we have no idea that they're there, how long they've been there. Subsequently, those restrooms are used for a lot of like non-restroom related activities, which is dangerous and unsafe and can leave a big mess depending on what activity it is. And it's like 5 feet from the children's room. So it's really, this whole area is just really not ideal. Again, the ideal would be like big automatic doors that are wide enough for everyone to get in comfortably. You walk in and you see someone that's smiling and greeting you, you know where you are, you know how to get to where you want to go, like it's obvious how to orient yourself, and there's plenty of space, so you can have more than one person coming in at a time. This is our book return slot, but we can only have that open after hours because the landing is not big enough to accommodate an interior book drop. So at the end of the day, we wheel out a book drop and unlock that return slot. But during the day, people can't use it. They have to enter the library to hand in their books. People really hate that. They wish we had a 24-hour book drop. We wish we had a 24-hour book drop. We just don't have space. Okay, so we will go in and reconvene in the nice warm lobby. I can make sure I share out the same information.
Pardon me.
Please.
Oh, go right ahead.
So sorry. So Royce is going to be taping me talking. So I hope that doesn't bother anyone. Okay, so I wanted us to start out here because sorry, go right ahead. This is what this is the first glimpse most people get of the library, the facade, and I don't think it's the most welcoming face that we could put on the library. So we're looking at the 1924 building. This is the original building. To the left, you can see the front part of the 1988 building. Do you need to come through?
I'm waiting on him. Sorry.
Oh, you got, okay. Okay. And then when we go around to the side, you'll see the 1977 edition. So these stairs are closed every winter because they're just so hard to maintain. They're cement, and it kind of slopes backwards. So even if you shovel consistently and salt, the ice melts and refreezes. Sorry, please go right ahead. And so it was just a huge liability, and it was not safe, and it was not a good use of staff resources to try and maintain. So we close it for the winter season, which means when people walk down Main Street and see the library, they see chains, and it's not immediately apparent where to go, and it looks like we're closed. During the summer, we open it up, and I still feel like it's not the most welcoming of entrances. If you have any sort of accessibility challenges, the stairs are a no-go. Hi, Rachel. Go right ahead. Hi, Rachel. Hi. So that's not great that our main ostensibly our main entrance isn't welcoming to a large part of the population. And then I think there's another part of the population that sees a building like this with big columns and kind of traditionally grand facade. Go right ahead. And feels like that building's not for me. Like, that's big and fancy and formal, and I don't feel comfortable ascending those stairs and going in. So, we would love to have an at-grade entrance on Main Street that's welcoming and accessible to everyone. And then something you can't really tell because of the snow, but there's a cement retaining wall all the way around here, and the grade slopes up a little bit dramatically. And so we've never been able to use this front green space for the public. It's not a huge deal, but in an ideal world, we would be able to have, like a bench or something for people to use this green space. Okay, so we're gonna go to the side entrance, and I'll talk for a few minutes there, and then we'll go inside, I promise.
Or, sometimes folks would set up in a circle, chairs, and just a variety of different arrangements.
Yep.
But yeah, and then, acoustics, all the pieces, lighting, mechanical system, so it does get a little stuffy.
Oh yeah, it's very humid in here. It can be a real problem.
It's a really cool thing. I still love to see the structural diagrams and why they did it the way they did. Because you have those trusses right in this direction above. Obviously it supports some low stacks, but those are almost more compact modulars. But then the compacts wouldn't fit there.
Yeah.
So it's a really quirky structural arrangement. It somewhat defies logic for the most
Yeah.
You're right. It looks like something you find in California. Heavy seismic area.
Okay. Well, if you guys have questions after the fact, just shoot me an email, and I'll post responses on the website, and I'll let you know when I do that. And Thank you so much for your time
Yeah.
and your interest. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Great information.
Going on in there, so I'm gonna talk in here and then we'll all just walk in so you can get the visual. Our community meeting room is our big community meeting space, and it's where we have both library programs and community events and community meetings, so anyone can book the space for free. It's one of the very few places in Middlebury where you can do that. And so consequently, it is very busy. Some challenges with the space are that it's not big enough. It can accommodate 75 seated. And we have a program probably once a month or so that exceeds that. Or at least in pre-COVID times we did, and we're getting back there. And then maybe like 4 or 5 times a year we have like big blockbuster events where it's standing room and there's just tons of people in there. So we'd like to have a bigger space. The ceilings are really low, which is a challenge because we have a really active community film club. And so they screen films in there, but because the screen has to be so low, if you get a good turnout, it's tough to see the screen if you're sitting in anything other than the first or second row. When it was built, people didn't have as much of a need for electricity, I guess. We would love to have more power outlets in the floor, in the walls. It would just make that space so much more flexible. Storage is a huge problem in there. When we go in, you will see all of our furniture is just pushed up against the edges. We also have folding chairs out here in the stairwell, which I'm pretty sure we're not supposed to do. We don't have space to store materials for programs. It actually looks pretty good in there right now, but it can get really, it can feel kind of dumpy sometimes because there's stuff that needs to be there, but if you're just coming in to have a meeting, you don't know why it's there, and it just feels like there's trash just like hanging out. We don't have a place, so I said we're one in, one out for our collection right now, so we deaccession a lot of books that have to go to the transfer station, and we have nowhere to put them, so we pile them in there. So it just looks, you know, as we get further into the month before our transfer station run, the books pile up. We could really use more storage. There is a small kitchen in there, which does not get a lot of use. People really only do like coffee and cookies and light refreshments. There's not a lot of need for the oven. And it's not a big enough kitchen to accommodate cooking classes, which would be like the one thing that we would do. So the kitchen hasn't worked out so well recently. Maybe it worked better when the building was originally designed. Let's see what else. There are 2 restrooms in there, but since that space is closed to the public, you have to book it. They're not really public restrooms in that sense. That space is accessible after hours, so you sign up and you get the key. The entrance is through the garden, and there's a really long ramp, which is very difficult to maintain in the winter, especially for programs that are after hours. Like if you have an 8 p.m. program, library staff are not going to be here at 7:30 shoveling, so it's really hard for us to guarantee that it's good access, but it's not covered. Let's see. Anything else that I want to say about the community meeting room? I guess I would just say that ideally we would have multiple meeting rooms of different sizes for this library, because when we go in, you'll see that the program in there right now is probably like 6 or 8 people. And if anyone wants to have a meeting of more than 4 people, that's the only room that we can reserve for them. And it's first come, first serve. So if someone comes along 2 weeks later and says, I want to have a program that's going to have 40 people, well, there's nowhere to put you. And we would love to have a place, we would love to have a specific room just for library programming that can really accommodate like messy crafts and cooking and kids moving around, so that we don't have to worry. We get booked out of that space a lot, basically. That's why the story time's happening here, because there's no availability. The public beat us to it, essentially. So we need a place where we don't have to worry about things getting filled up, where we know we can host programs. Because programs are a huge part of what we do here. pre-pandemic, we did more public programming than any other library in the state, including Fletcher Free and Kellogg Hubbard. So Middlebury loves public programs.
Tina, with that, so sinks
Yeah.
would be great.
Sinks would be
Messy
great, yes.
Floor finishes
Yes.
appropriate to the, yeah.
Yes.
And then a question about the meeting spaces, would you like to have the ability, like the town office to have recording easily done?
Yes. So, my vision would be that we have like one conference room sized room, so like up to maybe like 10 or 12 people, and that be permanently or more or less permanently set up for hybrid meetings.
Yeah.
So we're not all, because right now we have an owl and we set it up and we take it down every time someone needs to use it, and that's just such a hassle. And then we would like to be able to have recording in the big community meeting room.
Yeah.
And MCTV usually takes care of that for us, and so yeah, we would want to have a more integrated system.
Exactly.
And then I don't know what they call the hearing assisted, a loop or yeah, we'd love to have one of those. We could improve our technology game in the meeting rooms for sure.
Is this from Harry Potter or the?
No, let me see Harry Potter. So I know there's a program going on in the community meeting room. I don't know if that's Harry Potter. But if it's not, our librarian can help you figure it out. She's right down here. Well, Harry Potter sounds fun. How about we go in and see what they're doing? You guys can just take a look. I let them know we're gonna poke our heads in, and then actually that's the end of my planned remarks and tours. So actually, if you guys have questions, why don't we ask them now? And then after you look in there, you can either exit through the back door, or you can wander around the library. And I will also point out to you that you're welcome to check out the back garden and the space between the library and the Marquee Cinema. So it's like right over there. It's the space that the library owns that isn't currently developed. That we would plan. I would imagine we would expand into. So you're welcome to go take a look at that too. But any questions about the building as it is, or as we?
Very thorough tour, thank you.
Okay, I hope it was helpful.
It was very helpful.
Okay. Great. Okay. You guys take a look.